Good morning and welcome to Osijek in Croatia for the 2024 European Championships for 25, 50 and 300 metres. Well, we're about to get underway with the first of our 3P finals, and it's the turn for the men to go first. The women's 3P final will be later today, live for you here in this wonderful city, the fourth biggest city in Croatia, right on the banks of the river Drava. Well, the athletes are in place. And this is the 5-minute preparation and sighting time, which has now begun. So the vacuums have just been put away here today in Osijek, with the crowd gathering to watch this final of the 3P. So we're here for about the next 50 minutes or so. There'll be 3 series in the kneeling position, which is currently where they start. Then we'll change to prone, which is lying down, and then standing for the final part of the final. So that's our schedule for today at 12 midday. Current time is 11:51. So thank you very much for joining us, for coming along. If you're on YouTube, then do feel free to like and subscribe to the channel. That way you'll get notifications of each and every final that comes up. And if you're on Facebook, then hello to you. So quota places available in this final, one of them at least. One went to Miran Maricic in qualification earlier today. And we're just looking now at some of the highlighted names in this final of those who picked up quota places elsewhere on the road to Paris. So you can see Miran Maricic there from Croatia. A wonderful achievement for him in his home nation here in Osijek to take the quota place. He qualified earlier in 11th place, so missed out on the final by just 3 places. But the standard is so high, particularly when you consider the 2 French athletes in this final, particularly one of them being Lucas Chris, and then the 2 Norwegians as well, Henrik Larsson and John Hegg. So do let us know in the comments where you are watching from around the world as we look at the qualification earlier on. John Hegg 5.94, just one in front of Patrick Jani. And then Petr Nimberski of Czech Republic, or Czechia as it's more commonly known now, on 5.92. And then just to show those 2 tied on 5.89, Lepper and Chris down at the bottom. But doesn't matter, you get in. And then this is how they line up. Firing points A right through to H. A hotly contested final, I'm sure, is upon us, with the eldest athlete in this final, that's Serhii Kulish, just 31 years old, and just shows how young rifle shooting has become, particularly in the world of 3 positions. So European record stands at 4.66.1. That's Jiří Pravatsky. And that 3P world record was broken twice in Baku a few weeks ago by Lee Yukon. Managed to break it twice in the same amount of days, 2 days. So will the European record be under threat today? Well, we will find out. I've always wanted one of those foot rests. So you just see the eye movement as well of the shooters when you look down the sight just to get a fresh look at that target. You can see Henrik Larsson just doing the same as well. It's amazing to think the bullseye 10.4 millimetres, a distance of 50 metres away. There's Stefan Schulich, who's the coach today for Patrick Yanni. There's Lubos Opelka just to the left, coach of Petr Nimberski. And John Hegg just taking in a deep breath. It's quite humid and hot in the finals hall because it's a temporary marquee. I mean, it's a huge, huge setup here in Osijek.
After the second backshot series in the nil position,
And of course, no wind.
and Kulish with the same score.
So how's it looking then after two series? Well, just a slight change at the top. We have a tie for the lead. That's Herman Hegg and Kulish, both tied on 104.0. 1.4 now in front of Chris of France. And Henrik Larsson, that was tied for fourth, is still there on an individual basis now, just 0.1 behind. So just a reminder about quota places. 2 quota places were available for this final, and just by the virtue of either countries being full with quotas or quotas already being allocated to individual athletes, 1 quota has already been awarded in qualification, and that was Milan Malicic of Croatia. So a wonderful achievement for him and the home nation of Croatia. He finished 11th in qualification and took the quota place. So it means that for the highest finishing French athlete, that's Lucas Chris or Romain Offray, either one will take the quota place depending on where they finish in this final. .9 from Kulish. That doesn't surprise me at all. He's been shooting so well in this final. Follows that 10.9 with a 10.7. Shot just a little bit wayward from Nimberski, a 10.2. Can he make an improvement here? Just saw the recoil on the rifle. And these are small bore rifles. And they weigh anything up to 8 kilos. So a lot different from the rifles used in 10 metre. So Lepper and Larsson are the last to finish. It's not unusual for Lepper to be the last. He does tend to take his time, and after all, there's still just over 1 minute on the shot clock. And you're allowed to take the full allocated time should you wish. So they've just come in just one after the other. Henrik Larsson with the last shot for 10.1. And it also means that Lepper's finished as well. Lepper in 8th place and continues to stay there, 0.8 behind Nimberski. Meanwhile, Kulish of Ukraine has been shooting so well on 156.8. And then some separation now between Chris and John Hegg. Hegg in 2nd place. Chris just in front of his fellow Frenchman, Romain Offray. And the one remaining quota place in this final is available for one of the French athletes, whoever finishes highest. The other quota place was awarded in qualification to Milan Malicic of Croatia. So it's a pretty crucial time in the final as we move to the prone position, and all sorts of adjustments now will be made by the athletes with their multi-tool. adjusting the height of the sights and also their suits as well, and using the prone straps to get everything ready. You can see the prone straps just over the shoulder as we look at Kulish, who is the competition leader. It's got a total of 156.8. His highest series was the last one, which was 52.8.
After sighting series, another 3 series of 5 shots in prone position
So
will
another
follow.
5.6 millimetre bullet goes into the rifle. And there's a decent close-up as well of the ammunition being used. So if you are just joining us, then welcome along to the first day of competition in terms of the 50 metres. And this is the first 3P final. We have another one later for you today. And we're just doing the changeover at the moment between the kneeling and prone position. I think just while our mascot just poses for some photographs. Next final today, local time, is at 5 PM. So the idea is really just to try and get yourself sorted as quickly as you can to get down onto the mat, take as many sighting shots as you can in the remaining time. There's just over 4 minutes to go. John Haig looking pretty relaxed. It's amazing to think how experienced he is even at 25 years old. Henrik Larsson already down on the mat. There's that silver medal that he took at in the 3P. And there's Vidar Lindstad Fossmo of Norway, who is Henrik Larsson's coach for today. And now moving on to Aleksi Leppä of Finland. There's that 6th place at the World Championships in Baku. What a World Championships that was last year. So memorable for so many reasons. And John Leighton Dyson, or JLD as he's locally known and known in the world of shooting. Very nice man as well. Here's John Haig, bronze medalist in the 3P at the Cairo World Championships. Also took a gold medal as well at that same competition in the team men. And Espen Knutsen is the coach. So next we'll have a closer look at Serhii Kulish. Sorry, Lucas Chris first of all on firing point D. Bronze medalist in Baku at the World Cup in the individual 3P. And there's Jeremy Monnier, who's the coach. Very studious coach as well, very focused. A very nice person too. Here is the competition leader and the gold medalist from the World Championships 2 years ago, along with his coach, who's Lesa Leshkiv. And Patrick Yanni is next on firing point F. Gold medalist in Cairo in that same final where John Haig took the bronze. And Stefan Schulich is the coach. So 19-year-old Romain Offrère of France is next on firing point G. The only junior in this final. Silver medalist at the World Cup in Cairo earlier this year. So a great year so far, hence why he's in the final today. Could even take a quota, who knows, we'll have to see. And Marshall Anstedt is the coach. And finally Petr Nimborski, 28 years old. And Nimborski was the silver medalist Baku, as we're just seeing. And Lubos Opelka is his coach. So just over 30 seconds to go as we look at the world rankings for this year. And 3 of those athletes in the top 10. Milan Malicic, 9th, took a quota place by qualifying 11th today. So a terrific achievement for him in his home nation of Croatia. So we're about to get underway with the prone position. This is where we tend to see the highest scores. This is where I think the 3-position final gets very interesting, particularly in the second and third series, when the athletes have had time just to settle in a bit more. So Kulish of Ukraine leads, 156.8 is the leading total at the moment. Quite close behind though, John Hegg of Norway. No surprise for me to see him there, 0.8 behind. And then Lucas Chris of France, alongside Romain Offray. And the one remaining quota place for this final can only go to one of the French athletes, and it'll be whoever finishes highest who takes the quota. So we're underway. A 10.8 from Offray, great opening shot from the 19-year-old. We had a 10.9 in the leading position, and will we get one in the prone? I'd like to say that it's almost maybe a guarantee, almost. Let's see. .8 from Kulish, the competition leader, on his second shot. He had a 10.9 in the leading position. And there's some great grouping as well in that last series in kneeling. A total of 52.8 for the Ukrainian. 10.8 from Nimberski follows that with a 10.6. I think the Norwegian team just maybe realising that they are on the big screen. So Offray is completed, as is Chris. John Hegg has also finished his first series in prone. And Kulish with that 9.9, that's got to hurt. Is it enough to maintain the lead at the moment? It looks as if it is. 208.4 is now Kulish's total as we just adjust the scoreboard. Still 0.8 in front of John Hegg of Norway. Patrick Yanni moves up to third place. Lucas Chris in fourth. Nimberski in fifth. Larsen in sixth. Offray in seventh. And Lepper in eighth place. So one of the challenging things, of course, about this 3P final is just breath control, as it is in any shooting final. But just with the 3 positions, and just adjusting your body, you do just have to be careful of your breathing patterns. As we just look at Nimberski there, who takes a big intake of breath and then tries to still himself and remain as focused and still as possible. Well, a decent 10.8 from Henrik Larsson on firing point A. Certainly needs that if he's to keep in the upper part of the scoreboard. He's currently in 5th place at the moment. .9 from Kulish, the second of this final. He's been in fine form throughout this 3P final so far. Well, 20 minutes into this final. That's still a fair way to go. Got 2 more series in the prone position. Sorry, just 1 more to go. That was the end of the second series. So 5 more shots to go in prone, and this is where you need to make it count because you have the most stability in the prone position, and this is where Kulish will be just looking to increase that lead as much as possible going into the standing position, because John Hegg is fairly strong in the standing position in a 3P final, and Hegg is 1.6 behind Kulish of Ukraine, who's pretty much been leading from the very start of this final. Kulish, great shot, 10.8. Hegg meanwhile with a 10.7, so already another 0.2 gap. And now Kulish will be hoping to capitalise on the fact that Hegg's second shot was only a 10.2. I say only, it's still a world-class shot, but... And Lukas Klis with a 10.8. So this for me is when the 3P final really starts to take shape, because the final series of 5 shots in the prone position is your final chance really, where you have the most stability. Try and get your score as high as possible and give yourself just a bit of leeway and a bit of room for error going into the standing phase of the final. Do bear in mind that we only have 2 series of 5 shots in the standing position, and once we get to shot 40, 8th and 7th place will leave the final at once, and then eliminations take place after every individual shot. So John Hegg just wiping some sweat from his brow. And Freya just inserting the safety flag, as is Lukas Kris. And Nimborski, last shot was a 10.6. And that's all our athletes now over the line in terms of the prone position. And now we have a 9-minute changeover to the standing position. So Kulish of Ukraine was leading and continues to do so. The notable thing is the gap is still the same. 1.6 between Kulish and John Hegg. Hegg's a fairly prolific shooter when it comes to the standing phase of this final. Can Hegg close the gap? Meanwhile, Lukas Kris, just keep an eye on the Frenchman, as he's only 0.3 behind in 3rd place. Nimborski now just 0.4 behind in 4th place. So all sorts of adjustments now taking place. You can see how high the peep sights were in terms of the prone position of this 3P final. And this is where our athletes have to rehearse this part of the final because they're on their own and you've just got to get on with it.
To stand, they are adjusting their rifles and changing some parts. After which they will follow.
And also the rifle rests will come into play now as it's the standing phase of this final. Those rifle rests are allowed to be no higher than your own shoulder, which is why John Hegg's rifle stand will certainly look higher than everybody else's. And there's Pekka Kasuso, who's one of the vice presidents of the European Shooting Confederation. First met Pekka at the European Championships in Tallinn last year, 2023. We had -5 conditions, lots of snow. It was a winter wonderland. And I remember that at the time Tallinn had just been awarded the Clean Air Award for Europe. So it's the cleanest air, and you could certainly feel it. Got off the airplane, into the airport, came out the airport, and the air just felt so fresh. And I know that sounds a bit perhaps melancholy and romantic to say that, but I noticed straight away, and then saw a big poster board saying Tallinn awarded the cleanest air in Europe. And I just nodded my head and carried on walking with my suitcase and thought, yeah, I agree. So you can see the adjustments now taking place with the suit, getting the waist nice and tight because we're about to move to the standing position. It's pretty hot here as well. I mean, it's not the hottest finals hall I've been in. That certainly has to be Jakarta in Indonesia. The humidity there is bordering on unbearable, but the weather then is so nice outside. Here in Croatia we've got highs of about 27 degrees Celsius outside. And temperature's just creeping up to that. There's Jair Davidovic, one of the vice presidents of the European Shooting Confederation. Lives and breathes shooting and cycling as well. Very keen cyclist and also a big football fan. He was talking to me yesterday. He's very keen to come over and see a Premier League game in England. I said to him, which team? He said, doesn't matter, don't care. I said, well, I have to try and get one of the big ones. So is Henrik Larsson, now 26 years old. First met Henrik back in 2017. And that was at Seoul. And then I remember we had a great time when we were out in Fort Benning the following May in 2018. And I believe that was the last time a Rifle Pistol World Cup took place in the United States. I think the last World Cup was in Acapulco for shotgun that same year in August. It was absolutely unbearable with the heat, so hot. But here's Sergej Kulish. Let's go back to this final. Still 4.5 minutes on the clock. And representing Ukraine leads this final. And has had 2 10.9s already in this final. And there's just his collection of medals over the years. There's that Olympic silver. That was in the 10-meter air rifle. That was in Rio back in 2016. Amazing to think we're already into another Olympic year as we make the countdown to Châteauroux. The opening ceremony is just under 2 months away, 26th of July, the opening ceremony for the Olympic Games in Paris. And shooting is one of the longest programs at the Olympic Games, and that'll get going just shortly after the opening day. So just taking a closer look at some of, I say some, there's quite a few, isn't there, of John Hegg's medals. So you can see the peep sight at the end there, which has just been lowered for the standing position, just because of the way you address the rifle. It's much different. They're not as it would be if you're in prone. So Lucas Chris, remember he had a great performance at the World Cup final in Doha. I was there and commentator for that one in November last year. He was a gold medalist that day. And he also took a bronze medal in the World Cup in Baku a few weeks ago in the 3P. That's the 3 positions. It's been a great few months for Lucas. He's still only 23 years old. So Borski, who's been, I say, struggling a little bit, because you can see some of the scores there, mostly in the mid-tens. But it's just been moving around the middle of the scoreboard. Currently in 4th place on a total of 310.5. He's just 0.4 behind Lucas Chris. And if he has a decent phase in the standing 2 series in this final, certainly could even be pushing up for a medal. So if you are just joining us, welcome along. It's got over 90 seconds to go before we get underway again in the standing position of this 3P final. There'll be 2 series of 5 shots. And you can just see John Hegg of Norway there just towering over the rest of the shooters in this final. So Henrik Larsson not quite up to the 10.9 today, but some decent shots nonetheless. And he's in 5th place and certainly isn't out of the medals just yet. Just a reminder on the quota places though. 2 quota places were available coming into this final. One was awarded to Miran Malicic of Croatia, who qualified in 11th place, didn't make the final, but by the virtue of some of the athletes already having quota places or countries having their full allocation, it means that it's just the 2 French athletes who are eligible for the quota place, the one remaining quota place in this final. So Patrick Yanni, 26 years old. You can see his coach Stefan Schulich in the background. I do love that peep size at the end. That really is class. So Romain Ofrère, what a year it's been for him so far. Gold medalist at the World Championships in the 3P in the junior last year. Silver medalist in Cairo a few months ago in the 3P. And at the moment is in 7th place on 308.1, just 1.6 behind Yanni. And Alexei Leper, more of a 300 metre specialist, is in 8th place on 306.8. So here we go, 2 minutes 50 has been added to the clock, and it's already ticking down as we start the first phase and first series of the standing position. This is where the shots tend to go a little bit wayward into the 9 rings. As you can see even there, opening shot from John Hegg, 9.3. And the scoreboard will change throughout the standing phase of this final, that's for sure. Leper with a great shot, 10.8. So you can see a few shots in the 9 ring coming in. Ofrère with last shot with 9.3, Yanni with a 9.8, Coolish 9.7. Doesn't want too many more of those if he's to try and maintain this league. He's led for pretty much most of the final and has been in the lead with such focus as well, but quite a few shots in the 9 ring, 2 of them so far. John Hegg meanwhile, bit of a recovery with shot number 3, 10.4. Lepper with another great shot, 10.8. They had one of those earlier in this standing series. Very impressive at this stage when you consider that this final is already 35 minutes long. So Lukas Chris first to finish, last shot was a 10.5. Gives him a total of 362.5. Well, perhaps clearly checking some scores. Just see the focus in the background of John Leighton Dyson, the coach. And Lepper's final shot, 10.2. John Hegg just adjusting his blinder. And I think also just trying to deal with some sweat as well. It's quite hot in the finals hall. We have a temporary marquee, but it's been decorated and looks great. So Coolish still leads, but look at the difference now, just 0.1. Lukas Chris of France. Is it to be a medal? Is it to be a quota place for the Frenchman? Because Romain Offray of France, who's also eligible for a quota place, is in 8th place. And in that 8th position is 2.2 behind Lepper, who's been struggling for most of this 3P final. And I'm sure would prefer it to be a 300 metre because that's also where he's mostly prolific. So the final series in the standing position before we go to individual shots. Also the first elimination will be decided in 8th and 7th place. So who will leave? Romain Offray and Alexis Lepper are in 7th and 8th place respectively at the moment. Lepper, great shot. He's done so well in the standing. There's another 10.8. Just shows you, just keep going. Things can change. Lepper's already leapt up to 5th place as it stands. Jeanette Justad and Jenny Steiner of Norway, I'm sure just keeping their eyes on what's happening with John Hegg and Henrik Larsson. Henrik with a 9.2. Oh. So if you are just joining us, welcome along to the final stages of this 3P final. We're just into the final shots of the second series in the standing position. Serhiy Kulish of Ukraine has been leading the competition for so long. There's a change at the top though. Nimborski had a great series in the last standing, 51.3. The highest was Lukas Chris, 51.6. Actually, no, the highest was Alexis Lepper with a 52.3 in a standing position. That's it's just world class. So great shooting from Lepper because his last shot was a 10.5. He's found himself in 8th place for most of the final. And now who knows, could even start pushing for a medal if he keeps up this kind of standard. So Johanna Costelau, nice to see the pistol shooters turning up, representing Portugal. And that completes the standing phase of this final, and that means now we'll move to our first elimination. So Romain Offray of France and Henrik Larsson will be leaving this final in 8th and 7th place. What that does mean is that the quota place is confirmed for Lucas Chris of France, because the remaining quota place was only available to the 2 French athletes because the rest have either maxed out their country's allocation already have quota places themselves, as Ivona Placic, our announcer, bids farewell to Romain Offray of France in 8th place, and Henrik Larsson of Norway leaves in 7th. So Lepper now 1.5 behind Lucas Chris, and as you can see the Olympic logo now appearing on the screen, so it's all confirmed, and Lucas Chris takes that quota place. A great achievement from him, and who knows, could even add a medal to that priceless quota place for the Paris Olympic Games. So Naborski just giving his rifle a bit of tender care there, a nice little stroke, like it's a pet. Well, a bit like a pet, the bond with your rifle in a final such as this, particularly now we're into individual shots and they all count. Our next elimination is just seconds away. And Lepper with a 10.6. It's not going to be enough to keep him in this final. And Aleksi Lepper of Finland will be eliminated in 6th place on a total of 419.6. So John Leighton Dyson, the coach, is first to applaud. And 419.6 is the total for Lepper. High five from the mascot. So this is shots number 43. And that'll be our next elimination for 5th place. Lucas Chris at the moment with that quota place awarded to him. He's 0.8 behind. Hegg with a 10.1. Chris with a 9.6. So our next elimination with the quota place. So no medal, but a priceless quota place. And I just see Lucas Chris off camera. He's just been punching the air as he puts his rifle down. And a high five with the mascot, and the 23-year-old has had a pretty decent day. Jerry Monnier, the coach, is the first to congratulate him after the mascot. And Lucas Chris, who was the gold medalist in Doha at the World Cup final, now has a priceless quota place with the Olympic logo on your screen there confirmed. So the next elimination now for 4th. Kulish of Ukraine led for most of the final. John Hegg slams in a 10.9. What a time to do that this stage of the final, therefore taking the lead. Oh, we have a shoot-off. And would you believe it, Nimberski, who's had quite a strong standing phase, has now managed to level with Patrick Yanni. And I always find it amazing, particularly in a 3P final, you get to this stage after all those shots, all those scores, and there's still a tie, there's still a shoot-off. At this level, it just shows you how close it is. 440.1, they're tied. So it's Slovakia versus Czechia. Highest shot stays in. 9.7 from Yanni. Oh, and it's a 9.5 from Nimborski. So, would you believe it? Yanni, despite a shake of the head, he's managed to survive. And big smiles from Nimborski. A great couple of series in the standing position, and just shows you how your fortunes can change, and moved right up the scoreboard. And I'm sure he's disappointed to leave without a medal, but 4th place in the European final is certainly some achievement. So we now have our medalists. It now just depends who takes what. John Hegg, as we mentioned earlier, is always so strong in the standing position and has been pretty dominant over the last few shots. So Coolish and Yanni are some way behind, unless there's a disastrous shot from John Hegg, which there isn't. A 10.1. That's solid enough to keep him at the top. Coolish also with a 10.1. And what can Yanni do here? And it's another 10.1, so everything stays the same, and it does mean that the bronze medal is confirmed. So Patrik Yanni, 26 years old, representing Slovakia, is a bronze medalist here at the European Championships in Osijek. A great day, a great achievement. The mascot, again, straight over with the high fives. He's keen, she's keen, or they're keen. So there's a difference of 3.5 at the top. Will John Hegg hold on to this gold medal? With the kind of experience he's got and the medals he's already got, you'd have to say yes. But this is shooting, it could change. We want an 8.1 from John Hegg. 11.6 is the difference though, so it's enough to take the gold despite that wavering shot at the end. And we've seen that before from John, but it's enough today. So it's a gold medal for Norway. And 25-year-old John Hegg takes that gold medal. And Serhiy Kulish of Ukraine, who led for this final for so long, right up until the beginning of the standing phase. Didn't have a great first standing series, but just managed to recover and had some decent shots in the 10 ring over the last 3 shots to creep up and take the silver medal. So Serhiy Kulish of Ukraine. I think he's standing on the wrong side at the moment of John Hegg. And John Hegg now moving into the right position just as Kulish and Chris try to shake hands. So now they're lined up in the correct way. So we've got Patrik Yanni of Slovakia just to the right of your screen. And Serhiy Kulish of Ukraine to the left, the silver medalist, and John Hegg towering over the other two. So now the official announcements from Ivona Placic, our announcer. Patrik Yanni with the bronze. So Serhiy Kulish of Ukraine, a great final from him and a silver medal.
And the gold medalist, the European champion, representing Norway, John Hegg.
And John Hegg once again is a gold medalist. This time he's a European champion in the men's 3 position here in Osijek in Croatia. For the 25-year-old, it's another medal to add to his ever-growing collection. What a future this guy has in the world of shooting, still only 25 years old. So there we have it. That draws our coverage to a conclusion here in Osijek. We'll see you later today. Local time for the next 3P final. That'll be the turn of the women to take command of that. Local time here in Osijek, that's at 5 p.m. So we'll be on air from around 4:45. So that's how it finished. Slovakia with the bronze, Ukraine with the silver, and Norway took the gold. Thanks for joining us.
download. Attention.